when world building for the sake of creating background of a story, how deep down the realism rabbit hole do you go with a concept versus creating something to satisfy a plot point and moving on? And it depends, I think.
Yeah, I think that, again, that's the universal answer is it probably depends. I think there are times, too, in which, I mean, the rabbit hole is always the dangerous part, because world building in and of itself is always fun, and it's fine to do, but if you've got an end product that you need to get out, you can get carried away in just going on and on and on about things that you're never going to really need. I think it's interesting, though, when if you're writing a story or doing some other sort of creative act in which you've got a narrative, in which you hit something that doesn't quite make sense, that then you need to retcon, you know what I mean? You need to figure out a reason why that exists. And I would say go back only as far as you need to. Like I was just talking about this with these students that are doing this independent study, that we don't, in the United States, we don't sit around and talk about George Washington a whole lot. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's only been a couple hundred years and, you know, whatever. And yeah, things like the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution obviously have a great deal of importance how things work today, as does the Civil War. But, you know, I don't need to write the history of the Civil War to understand why the issues that emerged from the Civil War are still with us today. So I think that's one of those, as little as you possibly need might be my recommendation. But then again, it's that whole can of worms. Like if you create, that's also something too, that the more detail you provide, you're almost inviting more scrutiny as to why that detail. Yeah. So sometimes it's better, like hyperdrives just work. You know what I mean? Like it's a hyperdrive, it works. It's been around and no one really thinks about it. So again, I mean, of course the answer is always it depends, but that would sort of be my answer is you don't want to go too far down, because then you're just going to wind up opening more questions that you need to answer. Yeah,
absolutely. And I would say, and not to promote my own product, but keeping track of your thoughts and the reasons behind on something like World Anvil, or specifically on World Anvil, because it's awesome, is absolutely the way to go with something like this. So explain as little as you need to in the text and move on. And then any other thoughts you had about how you think this is going to work, throw them down on World Anvil in your wiki, keep them private. Nobody else needs to know until you write the sequel. And then maybe you need that information for something else. Or maybe you had a couple of different ways it was going to go, and you can note those down. And then the minute you have to decide, you're like, okay, well, now it's solidified because now it's a plot point. So absolutely keeping track of your thoughts and inclinations on these kinds of questions, even though you don't add everything into the text of a short story, for example, nor should you, because that's an expo dump and readers get very sick of those. Keeping track of that is going to save you a whole hell of a lot of work in the future. So yeah, absolutely. Make sure that you do that. You keep those notes, because they will help you and you will thank past you. You will, I promise you.